Good afternoon, and welcome to True Crime Mysteries. If you're new to the channel, hello and welcome, and if you're returning, welcome back. If you could give this video a like and comment with your thoughts down below, that would be much appreciated as it helps the channel to grow. And if you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and click that red button because I make more content like this, and hit the little bell icon so you get notified when I post because I'm bad at keeping a regular schedule. Today, we are discussing 3 missing persons whose last confirmed sightings were on CCTV footage. Let's get into it. Number 1. Iwona Wieczorek. In the summer of 2010, 19-year-old Iwona Wieczorek was on the cusp of starting a new chapter. The teenager from Gdańsk, Poland, had completed high school and was waiting to hear back from her university applications and was planning a trip to Spain. On the night of July 16, 2010, Iwona went out to a popular club called the Dream Club in Sopot, Poland. She was with her friend Andrea and 3 of Andrea's male friends, Paweł, Marek, and Adrian. According to a witness at the club, Iwona and her friends seemed to be having a good time. But then Iwona and Adria got into a fight. Iwona reportedly left to cool off before returning to the club in a bad mood. Her friends claimed that the fight started for no particular reason, though investigators believe it was brought on by Iwona's discovery her recent ex-boyfriend was partying with other girls in the area. She and her friends then got into another fight, and although her friend tried to stop her, she left the club to walk home alone. Iwona was last seen on surveillance footage captured on a camera at 4:12 a.m. She was walking along a seafront promenade just south of Sopot and was passing the 63rd beach entrance. In the video, Iwona is walking alone, barefoot, and at a brisk pace. Once she leaves the frame, though, she's never seen again. While her home is still 2 kilometers from where the footage was captured, some stretches of her route had no working cameras. According to phone records, Iwona sent text and received calls earlier in the night, but her phone died at 3:49 a.m. with no activity after that. On her way home, Iwona reportedly spoke with Andrea and made amends from their earlier fight. Iwona asked Andrea if she could spend the night at her apartment. Andrea was already home and she left the keys outside for Iwona to let herself in, which was a common occurrence for the girls. But the next morning, there was no sign of Iwona, and the keys were still outside. Andrea assumed that Iwona may have gone home after all, but when she called Iwona's mother later that day, she told her that she hadn't seen or heard from her either. Iwona was reported missing, and the search for her began. Police emergency team members, community members, and rescue dogs searched the area repeatedly, with no results. Her family and friends even asked for help from a famous Polish psychic, Krzysztof Jakowski, but he couldn't determine where she was. It would become one of Poland's most highly publicized and mysterious missing persons cases, drawing nationwide attention, public scrutiny, and countless theories. The national media coverage of the case ended up doing more harm than good, as the police received an overwhelming number of reports related to Iwona. Criminals even started reporting their enemies to the police in connection with her disappearance, and others extorted ransom from her family. The prime suspect in the case comes from the surveillance footage of Iwona. In the video, there's a man wearing a light shirt and a towel draped over his shoulders, who's staggering while walking behind Iwona. Internet sleuths looking into the case, of which there are many, started referring to the man as the Towel. The man is seen following Iwona out of frame, and then the same cameras capture the man returning at 6:22 a.m. with the same towel, but no shirt on. While police tried to identify the man, they could never confirm his identity or that he had any contact with Iwona. Some of the public began to suspect her friends, but investigators concluded that they'd all gone home after the club, which was confirmed by their cell phone logins, camera recordings, and testimonies from those they lived with. Private Detective Krzysztof Rutkowski was involved in the case from the beginning. He was able to obtain her cell phone records and hard drives before the police, as well as the security footage of her walking down the promenade. But Rutkowski's work has been highly criticized, as he's reported many different unverified versions of what happened to Iwona and accused various people of her kidnapping or murder. In August of 2010, Rutkowski claimed that he had a witness who saw the kidnapping on July 16th, and that Iwona had been forcibly dragged into a car. In 2011, he said that he had a new suspect, a 24-year-old man named Sasha, who told someone that he and two men abducted and raped a girl in Dansk. Sasha hung himself on January 3, 2011, with no mention of Iwona in the letters he left. It was later discovered that he was not in the area the night of Iwona's disappearance. He was over 200 kilometers away. Rutkowski later admitted that the information he shared about the witness was a bluff. In 2012, the police investigation was formally closed, but that didn't stop others from searching for Iwona. In 2017, a detective agency in Lampart suspected local garbage truck drivers of Iwona's murder, claiming that in a photo taken on the morning of July 17th, you can see her body in the back of a garbage truck. The drivers had already been interrogated a year after her disappearance. Two of them stated that they didn't remember anything about that morning, but the third man said that he saw Iwona talking to the man with a towel over his shoulders on a bench. The media described the police's handling of the case as clumsy. Their work was later investigated by the Supreme Audit Office, which determined they'd failed to publish information about the disappearance to media and failed to secure surveillance footage of Iwona. Iwona's mother also said that telephone records weren't checked until many months after her daughter's disappearance, despite her pressuring police to look into them. On May 19, 2021, Rutkowski and his team searched the area where Iwona was last seen and found a shirt in a plastic bag, tights, a skirt, and two knives buried. Rutkowski said a former prisoner had led him to the evidence, but according to reports, Iwona hadn't been wearing tights on the night she disappeared, and the knives Rutkowski discovered didn't look like they'd been buried for 11 years. Many people have said that Rutkowski's involvement in the case has been harmful, leading the media and police down rabbit holes and causing distractions. A journalist covering the case said the police stopped cooperating with him a long time ago because it turned out he was lying constantly. Early on in this case, investigators considered that Iwona had run away since there'd been no evidence of kidnapping or murder, although they never found evidence to support that theory. Another theory is that Iwona was a victim of a local serial killer. A week after Iwona's disappearance, a 34-year-old woman was found dead after leaving her friends at a festival. A year later, a 13-year-old girl was murdered north of Sospot. Both perpetrators are still at large. Iwona's disappearance is considered one of the most difficult puzzles Polish investigators have had to uncover. In 2019, the case was passed on to the Malopolska branch of the National Prosecutor's Office in Krakow, so it could be investigated by the Ex-Archive Department, where new technology experts and research institutions are used to examine the evidence. It still currently remains unsolved. Number 2. Stephen Koecher. On December 13, 2009, 30-year-old Stephen Koecher parked his car at the end of a cul-de-sac retirement community in Henderson, Nevada. In footage captured by nearby home security systems, you can see Stephen get out of his car and leave the area only to return a short time later to retrieve an item from his car and leave again. He has not been seen since. Stephen was originally from Amarillo, Texas, and was a devout Mormon who didn't use drugs or drink alcohol. He'd been living in Salt Lake City, Utah, before relocating to St. George, Utah in 2009. Stephen was struggling to find work amidst the Great Recession, but was actively seeking out opportunities. He'd found a job handing out flyers for a window washing company, but it wasn't enough to pay his bills. In the days leading to his disappearance, Stephen made an unscheduled visit to his ex-girlfriend, Anna Marie Neffs. Though she wasn't home, her family invited him in to stay for lunch, where he told him he was on his way to visit family in Sacramento, California. Though instead he returned to St. George, as he feared bad weather would make his trip difficult. He also spoke to his mother on the phone that day, who said he seemed upbeat as they talked about upcoming Christmas plans. The next day, on December 11th, Stephen was seen helping a couple of children who'd been locked out of their home. He also talked to his bishop, who promised Stephen he'd have a job for him in early 2010, and the bishop noticed that he seemed positive, despite the struggles he was facing. On December 12th, the day before his disappearance, Stephen's phone pinged a cell tower near Overton, Nevada, near Lake Mead. He also bought a baby's bib and snacks from the Kmart outside St. George, which were believed to be Christmas gifts for his family. His neighbor recalled seeing him around 10 p.m. that night. Half an hour later, he left his home, but wasn't seen coming back. The next morning, Greg Webb, the president of Stephen's local church ward, called him to tell him that he was in Las Vegas and may not make it in time for a church meeting. He wanted to see if Stephen could lead the meeting instead. Stephen told him that he too was in the Las Vegas area, but he could make it on time if it was necessary. Webb told him not to worry about it. Another church member also called Stephen that day and had a similar conversation. Neither man asked Stephen why he was in the Las Vegas area, but they agreed the conversations seemed normal. Just before noon, a home surveillance camera captured Stephen parking on the cul-de-sac. He got out wearing a white shirt and slacks and was carrying a blue folder or portfolio and didn't appear disoriented. He had no known connections to the Henderson area. At 5 p.m., his phone pinged a cell tower 10 miles north of where his car was parked. 2 hours later, it pinged again another 2 miles north. The next morning, it pinged again another 2 hours north between the Interstate 515 and U.S. Route 93 and Russell Road. That morning, Stephen's phone was used to check his voicemail, and it received a text from his landlord, but there was no activity after that. According to the phone tracking data, Stephen's phone remained in the general vicinity of the last tower ping for 2 days, which suggested his phone died there. The next day, local parking enforcement spotted Stephen's car and started trying to locate its owner. The officer saw a stack of flyers for the window washing company in the car, so he called the phone number that was advertised and spoke to the business owner. The business owner gave him Stephen's cell phone number, but there was no answer. The officer then called Stephen's mother, who didn't answer but returned the call on December 17th. She then realized no one had heard from Stephen in about a week, so she called his brother and sister, who traveled up to St. George to help find him. They went to jails, morgues, and hospitals in the area to try and locate Stephen, with no success. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department also went door-to-door in the Sun City retirement community in search of witnesses or leads, and also searched the area around it with helicopters and sniffer dogs, to no avail. By Christmas, the media had picked up on the story, and in February 2010, his family put out a $10,000 reward to whoever could lead them to Stephen. They also filmed an episode of investigation discovery show Disappeared in 2011, but no new leads came from it. Stephen's family believes he went to Henderson in search of a job opportunity, not because he wanted to escape his issues in life. Police say the contents of his car, which included Christmas presents and job applications, suggested he intended to return home. They said that there was no suspicious activity in his bank records or phone records, and nothing suspicious on his computers, in his search history, or in his diary. And a theory emerged that he was traveling to traffic drugs. A drug-sniffing dog was brought to his vehicle, but nothing was identified. According to his family, his travel history wasn't unusual. as he was researching his family history in the area and would often take day trips to keep himself busy. At one point, it was suggested that Stephen's disappearance was linked to missing woman Susan Powell, who disappeared a week prior from her Salt Lake City home. Susan had been having marital problems, and her husband's family suspected that she had run off with Stephen and framed her husband for her murder. The police found no connection between the two missing people and no evidence to support this theory. Utah and Nevada's police are continuing to investigate Stephen's case, but his family has struggled with the uncertainty of his whereabouts. His brother Dalen said, "We're stuck between hope and grief because we want to hope for the best, but we can't grieve because we don't know what happened."
It's tough to move on and grieve without knowing what happened and why.
We have this open spot that just isn't in our hearts. This just won't, it's not going to go away.
Number 3. Lashaya Stine. It was July 15th, 2016 when Lashaya Stine went missing. At the time, the 16-year-old was an honors student at George Washington High School in Aurora, Colorado. She planned on studying nursing and had a job interview coming up at a local sandwich shop. Lashaya's mother described her as a good and gentle daughter who would stay out late and go to parties like so many other teenagers, but still respected her mother. She said that Lashaya was typically easy to get a hold of aside from one instance when she couldn't get in touch with her and started to panic. She ended up finding her later that day while driving through the neighborhood. This time, though, things were different. On the night of July 15th, Lashaya snuck out of her room, which was located in the basement of their home, leaving no indication of where she was going. Her mother said that she had no idea why Lashaya would have left home or who she was going to meet. She left her wallet, money, phone charger, and clothing at home. Upon review, investigators found the window in her room unlocked and discovered that the plant in front of it had been moved, leading them to believe this was how she snuck out undetected. The first sighting of Lashaya came from CCTV footage captured near her home at 2:30 a.m. In the footage, Lashaya is seen crossing the street close to Montview Boulevard and Peoria Street. Over the years, several other sightings of Lashaya have been reported in many different areas. Police have received multiple tips from people claiming that Lashaya had been drugged and trafficked, which they followed up upon. At one point, a pimp contacted Lashaya's family and told her mother that she was being trafficked by a man out of a hotel, which was corroborated by witnesses. But by the time police arrived at the hotel, the only thing they could find were women's clothes scattered throughout the room. Then, in late 2020, they got a lead. The FBI and Aurora police had received a tip about a home in connection to Lashaya's case. They conducted a 3-day search of the property, which was located in the 2200 block of Lansing Street in Aurora, 13 blocks from where Lashaya was last seen. She had reportedly known the family who lived there at the time of her disappearance.
Police told us then that they believe Lashaya knew the family that was living in the home. We also had the chance to hear from her mother about the search for Lashaya back in 2017.
No, God has a plan. I know that in my heart. And I always say, God, you gave her to me. I just pray you give her back.
The police found a few things in their search that required a closer look, which led to the drilling of the basement and removing concrete from the home. They stated that they'd processed any evidence to determine if it was connected to Lashaya's disappearance, but so far no leads have come from the home search. Due to consistent sightings, Lashaya is assumed to be alive and would now be 21 years old. The police and her family continue to search for her and are working to bring her home safely. Her mother delivered a message to her daughter saying,
Baby girl, you gotta be strong, whatever the situation is, and you gotta come home. You gotta come home.
The police have yet to name a suspect in Lashaya's disappearance, but a $15,000 reward is being offered to encourage anyone with information to come forward to the Aurora police or to send an anonymous tip to Crime Stoppers. Well, that is it for this video. As always, please give this video a thumbs up if you like the content and subscribe for more if you haven't already. If you've done all that and want to support me and the channel, we have channel membership as well as Patreon to get early access, members only content, and more. We also have merch and other goodies in the description box as well as links to all my socials. But until then, I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.